Hi, it is January 10th, 2021, and this is Roger for Satyagraha News Network, where truth is the force. Because I was asked, I want to let you know that I will not be going to Joe Biden's inauguration on January 20th. Because I was asked. Oh, the mendacity of it all. Quote, there ain't nothing more powerful than the odor of mendacity, unquote, a character says in Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. And there isn't anything more powerful than the force of truth to counteract it, I say. I had been planning to talk today about two items. The first is my belief that Trump should be prosecuted for various crimes after leaving office. The second is that I think Biden should stack the court. My plan was to talk about these two topics only if Reverend Raphael Warnock and Jon Ossoff won the senatorial runoff in Georgia on January 5th, which they thankfully did. However, events have intervened, and I will save this topic for another time. Under Trump, our country has reeled from one crisis to another like an elderly person with ambulatory problems who navigates through a room, grabbing one piece of furniture after another with their hands, lurching forward, or in this case backwards, inch by inch. January 6th started off to be a wonderful day with news that Warnock and Ossoff had won. That was the beginning of the emotional roller coaster. For me, the even more significant story broke on Sunday, January 3rd, when I woke up to learn that Donald Trump had contacted Brad Raffensperger, the Secretary of State of Georgia, and in an hour-long phone call tried to flatter, threaten, wheedle, and coerce Raffensperger and his counsel, Ryan Germany, the latter to whom Trump said of his name Germany, quote, that's a good name. How do I know all this? I painfully read the transcript of the one-hour conversation that Trump had with them. Interestingly enough, listening to the small snippet that I did on YouTube brought another dimension to light, and that was the anger in Trump's voice that I did not sense in the reading. It has since occurred to me that if Hillary Clinton had done what Trump did when he called the Secretary of State, the predatory howls of Donald Trump and his ilk would still be bombulating through the halls of Congress and over Twitter today. It would be a Twitter storm. As the roller coaster on that day went from apex to perigee, Trump scrubbed his supporters to a lather, urging them to march on the Capitol. I also read the transcript of Trump's words to those gathered before him on January 6, prior to them marching to the Capitol. For the most part, that was a rambling screed, part witness to Trump's attention deficit disorder and inability to complete a sentence or form a complete thought, and part witness to his ready and sophomoric character assassination of anyone he deems to be an enemy. In reading the transcript of that talk, what seemed most incendiary to me was not that Trump urged the rabble to go to the Capitol peacefully, he said, but that he led them to a frenzy to do that by tediously and I believe falsely building a case that the election was stolen. But today in America, we have a crisis of epistemology, a crisis of truth. Contacting the Secretary of State of Georgia strikes me as transparent election fraud, and for this I think Trump should pay. This story and Ossoff and Warnock's win was soon lost in the juggernaut of successive crises managed by Trump's unhinged mind. Back in January of 2000, I led my first rally, that was January of 2001. I led my first rally, a demonstration against George Bush stealing the election, not in 3 swing states and not in 7 swing states, but in the swing state of Florida, a state where the candidate's own brother was governor. After the Supreme Court halted the counting, George Bush beat Al Gore by 537 disputed popular votes in Florida, while Al Gore had over 547,000 more votes than Bush in the nation. Because of this, Gore lost to Bush by 6 electoral college votes nationwide. I led my first rally on Inauguration Day, 2021, calling George Bush, an illegitimate president, and I believe to this day the war with Iraq and possibly Afghanistan would not have occurred if Al Gore were president. I, a supporter of the abolition of the Electoral College, believe that Al Gore should have been president. For the next year and a half after the beginning of these wars, I led a weekly rally on the grassroots of a busy thoroughfare during rush hour, because that was the only microphone those of us who did not believe in the drumbeat of war could co-opt for our use. The mainstream press ignored our point of view. Some people called us patriots for standing up for what we believed in, for fighting for the soul of our country, and a few people called our rally the 63rd Street Patriots. I am trying not to demonize the demonstrators on January 6th at the Capitol, though that group seemed to have more rabble-rousers than the Gandhian nonviolent resistors and friends of mine who participate in civil disobedience with a discipline and a peaceful demeanor. But what we do have in common is our very real passion for what we see as the truth and our desire to save this country from pending disaster. I see Donald Trump much the same way I viewed Jesse Ventura, the former professional wrestler who was the clown governor of Minnesota for one term only. There is no intellectual rigor when it comes to Donald Trump, but only childish tantrums housed in the body of a 74-year-old with enough money and meanness of spirit to do tremendous damage. Trump, repeating his lie about the Democrats stealing the election, duped enough people into believing that the election was stolen, and in the process almost stole the election. I read an interesting essay today written by Arnold Schwarzenegger comparing the mob at the Capitol with the mob in Germany on Kristallnacht, both mobs being misled by the lies of their leader. I will not say Hitler and I will not say Trump are charismatic. John Kennedy was charismatic. But I will say that likely they both have a certain seductiveness of speech. They seduce and they dupe. After avoiding listening to Trump talk for the past 4 years because I find him so ignorant and disgusting, after listening to 27 minutes of Trump's January 6th speech, I will say Trump is a very seductive speaker. But unlike other great leaders who are charismatic and seductive, think Gandhi and Obama, there is no depth underneath the surface seductiveness of Trump to his followers. Am I being unfair in suggesting that perhaps Trump's simple answers appealed to the shallow, lazy, and unschooled intellect, seeking easy answers to complex problems and complex solutions that are needed, much like Hitler offered? Could it be that Trump is so convincing to his followers because he has actually convinced himself that his lies are true? Faced with the electoral loss, he probably experienced some sort of cognitive dissonance. He resolved this dissonance by believing the election was stolen rather than by believing he lost. And after convincing himself, he convinced others. I find it interesting that when a hero like Mohandas Gandhi peopled this earth, at the same time there was a bipolar universe 180 degrees opposite, populated by Adolf Hitler. When Barack Obama brought his combination of intellect and compassion to the presidency, soon in tandem with that was the diabolical obverse found in Donald Trump. Whenever there is a Ford, there is a Chevrolet. That seems to be human nature. I am saddened by the death of Ashley Babbitt, as is often the case, wonder if the police could have used non-lethal means like a taser. But I was not in the halls of the Capitol, and it is likely that as it was being stormed, law enforcement feared for the lives of the legislators. I wonder how someone like Ashley Babbitt could have gone from supporting Barack Obama to believing in the bizarre thoughts of QAnon, the transparent lies with no ocular proof that the election was stolen from Trump, and most eccentric of all, the belief that masks do not save lives. What is it with people, many of whom gladly get a driver's license, have insurance for their car, want others to have insurance for their cars, wear seat belts, abide by other laws and rules that the government dictates, and possibly even want to restrict a woman's access to an abortion. But when it comes to their wearing a mask, which would not just protect them, but protect their community, they seem to see this as an abrogation of their personal freedom. If you want to be a libertarian and you don't want to pay taxes or wear masks or seat belts, then I encourage you to move to Somalia. I am also saddened by the deaths of the 2 Capitol policemen, one apparently at the hands of one of the demonstrators. I do believe that Black Lives Matter, and I do believe that Blue Lives Matter, and I believe that Black and Blue Lives Matter. Why was the Capitol Police Force so understaffed and so underprepared? And did Trump and the federal government tie their hands from getting further assistance? These are questions that need to be asked and need to be answered. So Trump has tried to dupe us over the last 5 years by saying if he lost any election, it would only be because the election was stolen from him. In 2016 and in 2020, Trump lost by a total of 10 million votes. Not only did Trump dupe ordinary Americans, but over 140 members of the House of Representatives and up to 14 senators, including my own Senator Josh Hawley, were duped. Oh, the mendacity of it all. I wrote Josh on January 7th after having called him several times in the days before the Electoral College vote when I left messages on his answering machine. I titled my January 7th email, Enemy of the People, and I wrote, I called you twice on the phone, Joshy, in the days leading to the Electoral College vote for Joe Biden, and demanded you show some intellectual rigor in your approach to our fair election, in which 60 law cases were dismissed, including 2 by the Supreme Court. And unlike Bush v. Gore, Biden won by an overwhelming majority of electoral votes and even more popular votes. You did not listen. Seeing your fist raised to Trump's conspiracy theory supporters on January 7 convinces me you are an idiot, and your brazen attempt to court his idiot supporters for your electoral ambitions assures you a statue in the Hall of Idiots and membership as an enemy of the people. I am embarrassed you are a senator from Missouri. You bring shame to our state, to our country, to Rockhurst High School. I would be very pleased to see you resign. Moments later, Joshy, without even having time to read my letter, automatically thanked me for sending it. I bristle when I hear him say he voted on behalf of his constituents who thought the election was a steal, because I am one of his constituents, and I believe this was a free and fair election. So you did not vote for me, Josh. Josh voted as he did to further his presidential ambitions. There seemed to be so much hate in that crowd of rabble-rousers that day. The faces seemed mean. People who are duped are dupes. Leading the undereducated masses astray is a long tradition in American history, and Rush Limbaugh has earned his bread and butter and his oxycodone by doing this. Huey Long, populist governor of Louisiana in the 30s, did this along with Father Coughlin, an AM radio personality and an aberrant Roman Catholic priest who spewed Nazism and nearly joined forces with Huey Long to run for president and vice president. Very likely the same underbelly was tickled by Hitler in Nazi Germany. This undercurrent need remain asleep because generally, unless they have brazen political ambitions like Hawley, their intellectual bona fides are slim. It does not take much to tickle and waken this type, and people like Rush Limbaugh and Donald Trump have done this very thing when it is best to let these sleeping dogs lie in both senses of the term. These people stormed the Capitol and seemed to mill about, taking selfies, and much like Trump when he won the Electoral College in 2016, not really knowing what to do once they got in. Trump knew how to stroke the egos of this bizarre and mean-looking assemblage, these often forgotten people preened in his attention. Trump himself, one not often to get sincere adulation, loved their attention, and it was a symbiotic and codependent relationship, an unhealthy dependency. Trump, who seems by all accounts to not love a whole lot of human beings, and certainly not any dogs, told the crowd he loved them, and they chanted back to him during his talk, "We love you, we love you, we love you." I get that, and I felt the same way and feel the same way about Barack Obama, and I still feel that way as I'm reading his book, The Promised Land, and as I read Michelle's book about their 8 years in the White House. Am I no different than these people, or are my choices of heroes, are our choices of heroes what defines us? A Gandhi and Obama for me, and Donald Trump, a low-life gutter dweller fascinated with bling and lies, them. The rabble that stormed the Capitol are passionate and care about this country, but unfortunately are misinformed by Trump, the dupe who duped them. I don't call it MAGGA, I call it MAGGOT. Make America greater. Get out Trump. I have no doubt, and though I could be wrong, and my certainty does not prove that I am right, I have no doubt but that history will condemn not only Donald Trump, and that is a no-brainer, but the likes of Ted Cruz and Josh Hawley and the other senators and congresspeople who enable Trump. Note that word enable, and note that enable and codependency go hand in hand, and anyone who is in a relationship with Donald Trump has an unhealthy dependency in which each feeds off the other in an unhealthy way, a codependency. When I heard about the Mueller report some years ago, I wondered why would Russia have supported Trump in 2016? Once I saw the chaos of January 6, 2021 in the seat of the American government, I realized why Russia worked for Trump's victory in 2016. America's loss is Russia's gain. I hope there will be charges against Rudolph Giuliani and Donald Trump for inflaming the passions no less than shouting fire in a movie theater. They say when a ship is sinking, the rats jump off. Not when it mattered, but only after the Trump ship was sinking did Secretary of Transportation Elaine Chao, Mitch McConnell's wife, Secretary of Education Betsy DeVos, Kelly Loeffler, Mick Mulvaney, Mitch McConnell, Lindsey Graham, and Twitter, only then did they start to divorce Trump, and not 4 years before when even a child could see that Trump was a crook and a scoundrel. Yet others like Mitt Romney and of late Ben Sasse, senator from Nebraska, have bravely challenged Trump not in every instance, but in some very important instances while he still had power. I am impressed with Lisa Murkowski's recent words of criticism of Trump. But if she had joined Ben Sasse and had Senators Pat Toomey and Susan Collins had joined with Mitt Romney, might Trump have been impeached before all this happened? Though I believe he definitely should be legally prosecuted for his multitude of crimes, as no man or no woman is above the law, impeachment now would be a fool's errand. This is Roger for Satyagraha News Network, where truth is the force. You can fool some of the people some of the time, and all of the people some of the time, but you can't fool all of the people all of the time. Thank you so much for all of your time.